Hello again, brothers and sisters in Christ. Pastor Mike here. Welcome to our midweek meditation. It's going to be a little bit later than usual. I actually took a couple days with the boys. We went up to one of those water park hotels and spent some time with family over really kind of 2 days. It was good. It's kind of the mini vacation I take once a year. So that happened earlier this week, so a little bit late on some things and playing a little bit of catch up. But we are wrapping up, in many ways, summer, and the summer realities are moving on. I know kids in Yorkville start school this week. I believe many of the other school districts that are connected here to Emmanuel have already started, so hopefully the kids are doing good. Definitely enjoyed the blessing last week, and hopefully those that weren't able to make it felt blessed on their journey to school. Even when they saw it on video, saw it on YouTube. So blessings there. And definitely blessings to our farmers in this heat and anyone else working outdoors. Oof to May, brothers and sisters. It's a hot one. But to the text, as I am getting a little maybe old and I'm just blessing things left and right. But on to our texts. We have many texts this week. And the one I'm definitely focusing on for Sunday is this confession by Peter. It's that interesting piece of Matthew. And my understanding of especially the scriptural journey in that gospel is that it's almost as far out as Jesus moves away from Jerusalem. So it's almost this path out, bringing the good news, and that's the farthest point. And now the journey back to Jerusalem and eventually the cross is beginning. Now, that is interesting because throughout this year, we've already had all those events. We've had his birth, death, and resurrection, and now we're in this larger green season, looking back on those things. But even then, the key piece of it is the confession of Peter in this and what it means. But even amidst that, I'll always like to take a moment if there's another awesome text that has some good grist for the mill, I like to bring it up. And our Romans text, which is Romans 12, 1 through 8, is very interesting. Let me give you what Paul's got for us. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think yourselves more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and not all the members have the same function. So we are many are one body in Christ, and individually we are members of one another. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, prophecy in proportion to faith, ministry in ministering, the teacher in teaching, the exhorter in exhortation, the giver in generosity, the leader in diligence. Now, this is an important text, especially as we as a church are moving back into fall, is this general reminder, we need everybody. And that might sound weird, but everybody has their role and their part to play in the life of church. And sometimes that gets out of whack. Sometimes we might really focus on one person or one group and how important they are. Often that's the pastor, that I'm the center of everything, and that's not the case. The church needs everybody. It needs everybody's gift, including even in worship itself. We often fall into the mindset of, maybe I'm not that important. I'm not needed. But you are. And that is the great reminder of this text. We need all the faithful to be part of the church, both universal and local, to make sure the ministry is carried out. And he even begins that discussion with this odd phrase, to be a living sacrifice. What an odd phrase. What does it mean to be a living sacrifice? Now, I don't think Paul is talking about being killed. Does that make sense? Because when you think about sacrifice, you take something and give it away, give it up. You know what I mean? Sacrifice in the Old Testament, you bring the cow, you give it up. It is then slaughtered, killed, given to God for God's purposes. But a living sacrifice is in many ways the direct opposite. It's not what one is willing to die for, but what is one willing to live for? Think about that. There are many things that people are willing to die for, but what are we willing to live for? To live day in and day out. Parents, it's usually children, that our lives can be a living sacrifice, that day in, day out, we live for the well-being of our children. And as we think about the gifts that God has given us, our role to play in the church, in the world, and all of these pieces, Paul is calling us to see it as a living sacrifice, that we live for the good. It's an interesting concept. It's a hard concept. And maybe that is ultimately, in some ways, where to end it, brothers and sisters. The question to ask is, what are we willing to live for? Think about it. Pray about it. Paul, in Christ, asks us what we are willing to be a living sacrifice for, to live for. That is a good question to ask ourselves. And hopefully, in some ways, it involves Christ, as Paul says, to give to him. As the verse says so eloquently, I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, by the mercy of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is our spiritual worship. Things to think about, brothers and sisters. I know it can often be quite easy to think about other things or not think about church, but it is a part of who we are. Well, blessings, brothers and sisters in Christ. Hopefully, school is going well. Transitions are going well. You are staying cool. But above all, blessings, and we'll see you soon. Talk to you later. Bye now.